Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Leo Bridgewater. I am the National Director for Veterans Outreach with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm also the co-founder of Leaf Launch Holdings, and I also sit on the board of advisors for the Cannabis World Congress Business Expo, which is the second largest cannabis trade show in the country.
That is a lot. When did you start all of this and why?
I got into this like a lot of. I'm a businessman. I'm an activist businessman. But I started off as an activist and evolved into a businessman. Best way to say it. And like a lot of people, like a lot of my colleagues who got into this industry, I got into it because we got into it because either something happened to us or somebody we love. And that's a different kind of motivation. And so I am a United States Army veteran, did multiple tours in Iraq, and and having had a number of battle buddies attempt suicide and be successful, at this point, we're at 22 veteran suicides a day. It's 5 a week here in New Jersey. I personally have 5 friends attempt suicide and 4 were successful. And so when you're someone who has, particularly veterans, when you've deployed multiple times and you've seen the worst that man can do to man, it changes your value system real quick, And so that is exactly how I got into it. I recognize that, cannabis, PTSD not being a qualifying condition in the New Jersey medical marijuana program was something that was unacceptable. And so I decided to use my veteran voice to try to get, PTSD added. And in 2016, then Governor Chris Christie signed our bill 2345 into law, adding post-traumatic stress disorder as a qualifying condition to the New Jersey medical marijuana program.
So now that we have all of that underway, post-traumatic syndrome, veterans, what component does that have when it comes to New Jersey and them giving that avenue to cure the inner cities, and what part do you play?
Well, when you talk about cannabis legalization, you're not just talking about a cultural shift in how we view this plant. We're also talking about facilitating a massive, massive transfer of wealth. Logistically, it almost can't be quantified. And so when you look at the logistics of cannabis legalization, that encompasses the green wave and all of that stuff. You have to recognize that, you and I, we are the only ones who will ever experience the end of prohibition on cannabis that could actually do something about it. There will never be another end of prohibition on cannabis. So think about what happened when prohibition on alcohol went down.
Right.
What was happening? We're at that stage now. We're now picking the new old names. There was a time when Anheuser and Busch were new names for alcohol, and that's where we are right now. But the thing about alcohol prohibition, it didn't play out on the black community or the African communities of color like cannabis prohibition played out on us. And so, therefore, when you look at the way, we have to think in terms of being at this early stage in this industry, it requires us to think on a macro and micro level. Now, as a community, as a whole, as a people, we're not accustomed to being in this position. The last few times that we were in this position, we kind of messed it up. We messed up with real estate. They redlined everything.
Right.
We messed up with .com. Ain't nobody own a computer.
Right.
We keep messing up with the hair industry. We just giving our money away.
Right.
This one was built on our backs in our lifetime. So growing up, my sisters and my mom used to make my sisters and I watch a show called Eyes on the Prize. It's a documentary on the civil rights struggle and what all they did. This is our Eyes on the Prize moment.
So this is an empowerment movement, so to speak, to whereas you're pretty much on the front line, making sure things are built properly,
Infrastructure, yes.
The infrastructure and the foundation is built, so individuals like you and myself and other individuals that were in the space or are in the space looking to become advocates of change. How is that like, is it difficult when it comes to each branch to get people to understand how important it is to be in the space?
Oh yes, we're dealing with, understand something, we're dealing with decades of stigma, how this was played out on us, what President Nixon did to us, making it a Schedule I drug, the way the war on drugs played out on us. You have to understand, President Nixon needed something. He needed to be able to bust up the meetings of the Black Panther parties. He needed to be able to get at the hippies because they were his staunchest opponents for the Vietnam War.
Right.
So he knew if he could vilify cannabis and heroin on the evening news and get the American people to associate one or the other with black people and hippies, then he was good. And it worked. It worked so good that you're sitting here today in 2019 and you're asking me these questions.
Earlier, you had mentioned about post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm familiar that you had some time in the Army. Is that a reason why you got into the cannabis business?
Yes, I actually, a friend of mine's called me up. Well, a friend of mine's put on Facebook that he was about to kill himself, and I freaked out. So I called him. I kept we kept trying to get in touch with him. I ended up getting in touch with his aunt, and then me and his aunt got in touch with his brother, and then me and the brother and the aunt and the brother-in-law and everybody. We got in touch with the police department where he was and everything. Finally, at a certain point, I said, let me just call. I'm just going to call until he answers the phone. And he picked up. And when he picked up, he didn't sound like him. He didn't even sound the same voice. I wasn't sure if I was talking to the same person.
Right.
But then the things that he was saying to me let me know he was the same person. So he was at that point, and mind you, it was because of the pills and stuff. And he got put out of the Army because of his back. He got hurt. So he was, you see what I'm saying? Right. So yeah, it's
depression.
Because, yes, all that. He had to redefine himself, and and the thing is that he's one of the finest soldiers I've ever had the honor of serving with. And to hear him reduced to the sound of a child, and mind you, he was saying stuff like, I want my ashes spread out across the sea like the Vikings in Valhalla and all that other stuff. I'm like, what? And mind you, his son is the same age as mine. So I'm really freaking out. Got him on the phone, prayed. The cops, while we were on the phone, the cops rolled up on him and got him. So
you basically saved his life.
Yeah.
Wow. Great. For those that are not familiar with cannabis, can you explain how it is beneficial for the human body?
Okay, our bodies every human being has what is called an endocannabinoid system. It's your body's ability to heal itself, regulate the way things work. And so your body already naturally produces one of the compounds that's found in cannabis, CBD. And so that's why historically cannabis has always been a good thing for the body because it's like an anti-inflammatory. It's natural to the body. It's not synthesized. And so what CBD, your endocannabinoid system is the most under-maintenance system in the body. Why? Because the thing you use the maintenance with is federally illegal. So that's why. And then, of course, it's not this is the stigma.
Okay, that question being said, how do you feel about our youth using the actual plant while, because, in our inner city, this is not just a habit, this is the culture.
Way of life.
A way of life. How do you feel about our young people developing while using the actual plant.
I think that when you talk about, I think the use of culture and way of life is a misuse of what it is that we do and why we do it. If you actually listen to people, if you actually, when people who say they openly consume cannabis, if you ask them the when, the why, the how, doesn't sound like a culture problem. They're medicating. You have people who are out there medicating and they don't even know that they're medicating. They don't know, like they call it something completely different. You're medicating. That's what you're doing. So all consumption is actually medical, whether they realize it or not.
Right. Because I'm realizing that right now. How do you feel? Now we're going from the young to the elders. How do you feel? On the other hand, what are the benefits of the elders using cannabis in their elder years?
The fastest growing demographic in the cannabis, the fastest growing demographic of users in the cannabis space, old people.
Right.
Okay, they're smoking metric tons of this. Once again, why it spells disaster for the pharmaceutical industry, because old folks are using cannabis, whether it be for both THC and CBD or just CBD only, and they're coming up off of the medicines. That's not good. When you talk about cannabis legalization, you're messing with three types of money. Old money, that's the pharmaceutical industry. They've been operating in New Jersey for generations. Then you're messing with long money, that's the alcohol industry. They've been operating in New Jersey for generations. And then you're messing with big money, that's the prison industrial complex. So there's a ethical side to this, you know what I'm saying? And then there's a ethical and then ethical.
Right.
You know what I'm
What's
saying?
the difference?
One is medical,
right.
the efficacy of cannabis, and then ethical being what's right and wrong.
Right.
And so
that moral cause, because some of us, like I said, now you're dealing with the elders and you're dealing with the young.
Yes.
Now you on both of those dynamics, you have people that want to relieve stress, and all
Yes.
in the whole over. You know, you say it's medical. Now you saying what's moral. The elders don't feel like it's morally right for the young people to be using it, because
Correct.
even though it's relieving stress, they're actually de-escalating their stress levels, and they're less likely to be violent and be able to focus more. That's what young people use it
Yeah.
for.
Oh, yeah.
And then the elders are looking at it like, okay, this is a drug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
so,
why, yeah.
So
yeah.
now we discussed it. We discussed specifically the elders. Why is it so hard to reach them in the church community?
Because you are dealing with two types of people, Jetsons and Flintstones.
Okay.
Now, those designators transcend race, religion, gender, and most importantly, those designators transcend age. There's some young ass Flintstones out there.
Right.
Okay? And what we're doing is we're asking a bunch of Flintstones to write the rules to a Jetsons game. This is a Jetsons game. No matter what. It's been underground for so long, and it's evolved. I mean, it's evolved so much that we don't even say gateway drug. They do. We haven't said gateway drug in years. That was scientifically
What was
debunked.
it, the 90s? I've
Yeah,
heard
it was
that since
scientifically
Reagan.
debunked a long time ago. Okay, they still say that. And let me give you another example. Yesterday, the New Jersey State Assembly decided that they would send adult use cannabis bill as a ballot referendum come November of 2020. That's what they want to do.
Okay, explain a little bit.
A ballot referendum means that when we go to vote in November, when you go to pick who the president is, you know, who you want to vote for president,
Right.
and who you want to vote for Senate and all that other stuff, one of the other questions that's going to be on there in New Jersey is, and listen to the question, this is how they're going to formulate the question, okay? Do you feel the state of New Jersey should tax and regulate a form of marijuana called cannabis? Let me say it again.
Okay.
do you feel the state of New Jersey should tax and regulate a form of marijuana called cannabis?
So why are they blocking it off in just that?
Well, first of all, cannabis is marijuana. That's how they think.
So
That tells you,
so
like,
checks and balances. It's
yeah,
all, it's,
and mind you, the same type of people who came up with that question are the same ones that's supposed to be writing the rules.
right. And then that when it comes to voting, we already know what our stigma
is a
is
problem,
with voting.
yeah. Yes.
We don't vote is the way we should be voting.
Which is why you have politicians who can do dumb things like that and say things like gateway drug, because they run unopposed. There's a particular type of arrogance that comes along with that.
Right.
And that's where we are right now.
So how's our chambers, since we have an African American chambers of commerce, how are we dealing with the organization with the racism in the cannabis industry?
Well, mistake number one is going straight to the African American Chamber of Commerce. That's a mistake. It's a mistake to go to the NAACP. That's a mistake. Why? Because they're headed by Flintstones. They're headed by people who come from the most conservative group of people to talk to, black church people.
Right.
You know, I just had a conversation with some businessmen about this, African American. They're older, and they were coming at me really hard. And I was just standing there listening to them, and I said, okay, you know, I'm one of those people, I like to swing the big stick early, so let me just swing the big stick. I said, look here, black man to black man, I said, I wish you was here. Businessman to businessman, I didn't say I miss you.
So
there's a difference. There's a difference because you have locked your doors, you slammed your doors on me for so many years. You've ignored me for so many years that not only did I learn to survive without you, but I've also learned how to thrive without you. They don't know how this works. They don't know who's who. When the governor of New Jersey wants to send a message to black and brown people, or black people, he goes to Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Al Sharpton. Okay? Now, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Al Sharpton are not Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Al Sharpton in the cannabis industry. I mean, we know who they are, but they ain't that. So why you going to talk to them? And why you asking them what the rules are? They don't even know how it works. They still say gateway drug. They still call it, pot. They still, we don't even talk that way.
So earlier you had described this as the Jetsons movement, and the Jetsons had showed us a lot for the future. Can you please explain to us where do you see the future of cannabis going?
Okay, so if this was a television show, you and I would be in season 8, episode 4. Okay, the Flintstones are in season 1, episode 6. Spoiler alert: it's not a gateway drug. That's the season finale in season 1. But we need y'all to binge watch, And so one of the things that you have to recognize is who's who. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know who the actual our black leaders in the cannabis industry are not recognized by the established authority.
When I had met you a few years ago, we were speaking on where do we see the future for the cannabis.
Oh, I'm sorry. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. That's where we are in season 8.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, science, STEM.
Okay.
STEAM encompasses the entire cannabis as a culture. So I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. STEAM. That's where we are.
Okay. So since we're on season 8.
What's happening in season 8?
There's happening now. So how what is your impact on building a positive community and our overall how people view the cannabis industry?
At this point, because we have been, education is our number one issue. Okay, even in season 8, education is our number one issue. We are not educated enough. We are not time appropriate enough. Those of us at this point, as of 2000, at this stage at this time in time, those of us who are already doing it are probably going to have to be the ones to do it for everybody else. Because you know how, people, especially black people, well, I got to see you do it before I do it. There's a lot of that. And then, of course, uneducated or miseducated. And then you also have to think about, are we time appropriate in our preparedness for this? As a community, no, we're not. And we also have to think about not just what's best for our community, but what's best for this industry, because this industry is in its infancy stage too. And so there are things that you could say you want in terms of a wish list, but if that wish list was granted, would it make a viable industry? You see what I'm saying? Because this industry is brand new. It's still young. It's still evolving. It's still learning itself. It's still, and there are things that you could do that could actually bring it to its knees. Sort of kind of like, remember the subprime mortgage issue?
Right.
Everybody got mortgages, but then a couple years later, what happened? They couldn't afford them. We're setting things up that looks like you're fighting. Some people are fighting for things that set us up for that. They're not thinking it's what you call unattended consequences.
So now that we're going arriving on that situation, because we're more consuming than actually becoming owners in this industry. How easy is it for the black communities to get into the cannabis industry, meaning actually legally, where people can understand we're doing it illegally. Now we need to be actually having a business where you can actually, from seed to sell to all the way to actually serving your community in the right way.
So there are those of us who, need to rage against the machine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Most of us are raging against the machine. But then there are a few of us who need to rage within the machine. And when you talk about particularly bringing those up from the legacy market, whether the legitimate market recognizes it or not, but those who are of the legacy market, they're the ones we need right now. Them the ones, Nut and Mucho and them up off the corner, I need them in this industry because their brains are built for this. Their brains are built to crunch the numbers. Their brains are built to have things move in a certain kind of way, which is why New York is the #1 cannabis consuming city in the world. Listen, New York City is the #1 cannabis consuming city in the world. Karachi, Pakistan is #2, and New Delhi is #3. Los Angeles is #6, and Chicago is #8. Okay? New York and Chicago made #1 and #8 with this being illegal.
That'll tell you why we should be in the industry. And that really takes me to the area of entertainment. Now we already using the actual drug as a form of innovation and visuals. How is that impacting the actual education versus the actual part where people actually are making the legal money? Because you see a viewpoint where it makes it cool to actually view it,
right,
but not actually use it.
Right.
Whereas you have the legislation, the whole government component, making it a lot harder for us to get into the industry legally. How are you making?
So you have to understand where you. I think that's a great question. So here's where you go. The people who made the most money during the California gold rush never touched the gold. It was the people who sold the wood, the picks, the shovels, the wheelbarrows. They're the ones who actually made the most money. Like last year in Colorado, total revenue for cannabis sales was $1 billion. Okay, so the businesses that support the plant made more money than the businesses that actually touch the plant.
Right.
So there's a full, you have to understand, people, 98% of the people, I co-founded Canna Gather, New Jersey, okay? So we were the largest, networking venue in the state at one point, in the tri-state area, actually. And 98% of the people who would come to me after a Canna Gather event and said they wanted to get into this business, they all said they wanted to do a business that touches the plant. That's not even them.
Right.
And it goes, and then you have people who say, well, I want to know how to get into this business. There will never, ever be another end of prohibition on cannabis ever again, okay? And that's where we are right now. So this is so ground floor that if you took the name of your job or your passion and you struck out the name of it and then inserted the word cannabis, you be the only one doing it. Because there's nobody like we're so brand new that there aren't very many people who.
All right, so next question is, how are you tracking this? Now, I have friends of mine in the industry. They talk about blockchain, right? So when it comes to the industry, how are you the industry tracking what's the real and the synthetic? Now you get now this is where I get into the business where you see what is real and what is fake. Now you got THC, CBD, and you have all of these different levels and forms and strains, all conglomerated to be considered cannabis. But we know for a fact that there's synthetic stuff that's not real, and what is medical where people can use it for the right resources.
So the question in its totality, right, makes the case for why you should legalize, because. Again, lack of education is the reason why people are as confused as you say they are, and I agree with
right.
you. Okay?
They don't know the difference.
They don't know, yeah. Lack of education is why 98% of people who talk to me think they need to do a plant touching business, not realizing that the ancillary is where the money really is. Lack of education is why we are just talking about cannabis and ain't nobody said nothing about hemp, and that's the long money. Hemp is the bigger money. Cannabis is $1 billion a year industry. Cannabis is going to be $100 billion a year industry. Hemp, that's $1 trillion a year industry. Hemp is where we rebuild the inner cities. Hemp is where yes, all of that, because there are about 27,000 different uses of hemp, which means that those are different businesses, all those things we could actually use. This is how we rebuild the hood. This is how we start getting jobs in here. At a certain point in the very near future, you're going to see that you're going to have multiple generations of people being trained in cannabis and hemp at the same time, because we're getting ready to hit a recession pretty soon.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And so people are going to have a change of professions,
Soon.
So you said change of professions.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel with that more companies and businesses will be incorporating cannabis? I remember we had a conversation one time where I had brought to your attention where I feel in the future that it'll be a time where McDonald's and Burger King will be incorporating cannabis within like their menu. Like
No, Walmart, Target.
Those are
That's you're right about the commercial chains and all that stuff. Just the wrong ones.
But it's still considered big pharma. You get what I'm saying? Because
right.
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart has more doctors than any business in the country.
That's deep.
Do you ever think that we'll have a cannabis McDonald's?
No. I think here's what I think has to happen. What will need to happen?
Because Taco Bell has alcohol.
Yeah, I know, right? But here's the thing. I think that first of all, whatever this will be, we won't notice it. That's what you want. You won't notice that, like it won't be a thing. Like it's not a thing to go to the liquor store and go get you some beer. But when alcohol first ended, people were, I want to get me some beer. And I get to buy it in public.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now it's not counterculture anymore.
Right.
It's the same thing here. But what people are going to need to do is people are going to need to rethink the way they get their money. Like everybody, like a lot of people are not going to be having jobs.
Right.
People need to become business owners. Them 1099s and the way they fill out their tax paperwork.
Very important.
Like what we do, that's going to be on the rise. If there's one thing 45 taught me is I need to have my own money. As long as you got your own money, you can say whatever you want. And as long as you don't, it's not even so much that not just your own money, but as long as nobody has no say-so over how you make your money.
So the Cannabis Tri-State Equity Summit is coming up in a few days. What can we expect at that event?
Well, I'm one of the invited participants in this summit, and what I'm looking to do is, first of all, I'm not looking to come to a therapy session. What happens real quick is people stand up, they speak their truth to power, and then everyone claps, and then you go home and don't know how it happened. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to lead this equity summit as a vessel filled with all types of material and everything that has New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut elements all in it. Because now we have to take this to our state assembly and our state legislatures and our senators, and we have to say, this is what we want. Now, not only do I have to say this is what we want, but this is what will be in New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. All 4 states, from an activist perspective, are going to have a uniform ask or a uniform demand. So I'm looking to come there to work, to come down to make some decisions. Because when you talk to people, if you ask 10 different legislators and you ask 10 different activists on what equity is, you're going to get 20 different answers. And so we need to have a uniform way of talking. Our talking points need to all be the same, and we need to identify our leaders from the cannabis industry. Like they need to, like the governors, because about a month and a half ago, the governor of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut got together on a little boys' trip, and they talked about cannabis legalization. They had these 7 pillars that they wanted to hit. This equity summit is a response to that meeting that they had.
Okay. How now you saying this? Now we're going into the promotion of the business.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain parameters when it comes to advertising,
marketing, yes,
and promoting and building content to bring awareness to the cannabis industry. What have some of the things you've encountered when it comes to promoting and advertising cannabis as a healthy, not only sport, and as not just a advocate of change?
So this is where
because it's very tricky these days.
Oh yeah, but that trickiness is temporary. If you really want an idea of where we could be or where we're going, where we're headed, then you can go back out. Now you can go out to California, because there's billboards. I see billboards out there advertising MedMen or certain types of brands of cannabis, you
Right.
know, and available at MedMen or what have you. So where the stigma isn't as, they're more advanced in terms of this being socially acceptable to the point where we can, where they can have a billboard. Now here's where the oxymoronic politics comes into play.
Right.
You have a problem with us advertising cannabis, but you have absolutely no problem with advertising a product that has killed people, like alcohol. A product, you have no problem. I see horses kicking footballs and stuff like that for beer commercials and stuff like that. You don't have a problem with that. Matter of fact, you don't even have a problem with advertising a product that may cause death, that may cause depression, that may cause. Every time I hear a pill commercial or some sort of medicine, at the end of that commercial, they tell you that this thing might cause something that. Well, why am I taking this pill again?
We all hear those commercials, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to, So this is where we, again, the Jetsons and the Flintstones, and I had someone ask me, well, what do you think needs to happen, or what do you think should happen? And I was very, very, blunt with him. I said, a lot of old people got to die.
Ooh, that's deep.
And he was like, what? And I said, listen, wait. I don't mean the old people in the senior citizens' homes. I'm talking about the ones that's in City Hall, the State House, the Capitol, White House. I'm just saying, because voting is a problem here, okay?
Right.
And these people, so there's no voting them out, because these people keep coming back year after year. So the only thing I could think to do is we're just gonna have to wait for them to die.
That's crazy. That was
That's a heavy question right there at the same time.
I want to ask you because you're mentioning the older people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, earlier we had spoke also about the church and African Americans.
Yeah.
All right, how could we incorporate more of our elders in the black church with what's going on right now as far as in the cannabis community?
Educational events. I did an event at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York last year, and it was this year. And Emmanuel Baptist Church is the largest African American congregation in Brooklyn. Okay, and I had colleagues from all the way out west, down in Florida, Massachusetts. They all came here, and it was an all-day event. It was such a good event. It made the evening news in Johannesburg. So that tells you. Traditionally, the black church is viewed as the gatekeepers to the African American community.
Right.
And so in order for this to go down, we had to have the blessing of the pastor. And it just so happens a friend of mine named Gia Marone actually knew the pastor. And so when she met him and they were talking, he got to bounce all of his questions off of her. And she did such a good job of answering the question. He said, "You know what? We need to bring this to my congregation. They need to be educated, just like he was." And so once again, all roads lead back to what? Lack of education. Yeah.
So I got this question.
Yeah.
All right. So the amount of individuals that have been incarcerated because of illegal marijuana use or either distributing marijuana. What is to be changed? Obviously, now we're talking about the Kim Kardashians and all of the actual things that have been happening right now because of marijuana since they're changing the laws.
Right.
What are we doing as a community, or even is there a chamber of cannabis advocates that are helping changing the laws for returning citizens to get jobs, to create their own businesses, and advocating the returning back to their communities to do great things with cannabis? So,
like one of the things that us activists are doing, is we want some sort of automatic record expungement. First and foremost, let's clear their records.
Right.
Okay. And then those who have been wrongfully prosecuted, because everybody whose record we talking about clearing, can't do this.
It's absolutely terrible.
Everybody can't do this. That's that subprime mortgage issue we'd have.
Right.
But there needs to be some sort of a program that specifically targets not just them, anybody who wants to be in this industry, such as it is, where the advantage for the previously incarcerated versus the black previous incarcerated versus his black counterpart who's never been incarcerated, the advantage should come in through the amount of funding that this guy gets versus what this guy gets. Sort of kind of like who gets the better, financial aid.
Right. So now that you have that question going, financial aid, well, now it's a lot of money in the industry, right? How easy is it for you to get a loan, whether it be getting land or even like having a full facility, if you're just wanting to get into the business just for be able to distribute it or make sure medical use is being, in a proper manner in your industry if you're African American or black?
If you are, let's say we put a percentage.
Right.
You have a
What's
60% chance or 50% chance. You have a negative 80% chance.
So how is that? How is that going to help?
Capital, lack of funding, lack of access to capital.
So what are the resources?
You need capital.
Like you just spoke about someone that specifically.
There are people who are like my white counterparts. A lot of my white counterparts can go and talk to their parents and get money. Friends and family.
Right.
Okay, we don't have that. I'm not saying that. I shouldn't say that. Not a lot of us had that. You know what I'm saying? And those of us that do have that ability to do that, it's very hard to get that money because the people that they would get it from, those friends and family where they would get those millions from, had the stigma. the old black church people.
Right.
So it's like, listen, the African American community has money. We have a lot of money. We have billions upon billions of dollars within our own community. The problem is that, first of all, it's very hard to come up off that money. You know what I'm saying? Folks ain't readily letting go. And then on top of that, you're asking them to come off that money and give it and invest in something that they've been taught most of their lives is actually illegal and bad for you. And this is your brain on drugs. Get the question? All that.
Right. So, like I said, man, it's been a pleasure. We have one more question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, so how often is it that you smoke?
Every day.
Wow.
Every day. Every day. It's a maintenance thing. Every day. A couple of times a day sometimes. Every day.
What's your favorite
Gorilla Glue.
strain? Your favorite strain?
My favorite strain is called Bridge H2O.
Okay, so now you got me back on board. What type of strain is it? Is it a smooth? Is it an indica?
It's a heavy
sativa?
indica. It's a heavy indica. It's meant to put you down, so that you can. It's meant so that you. Because I'm gonna tell you what happens. I normally use Gorilla. I smoke a lot of Gorilla Glue, but Bridge H2O was developed so that I can actually. When I smoke a heavy indica, I don't dream. See, that's how my PTSD plays out. My wife and my sons bleed into my dreams. Like, I have a dream that I'm in the middle of a firefight, and somehow or another, they end up in the firefight. So now I'm fighting harder to get to them. Now, what does that translate in the bed? I'm like this in the bed. You see what I'm saying? So when I wake up more tired than when I went to sleep, because all night I was tensing and I was trying to, so I feel, like it was more of a working out all night off of a dream. But when I smoke that Bridge H2O, I'm out. It's a wrap. And I wake up like, yeah, you could go. Yes.
All right, so before I even end this is one of my favorite questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
All right, post-traumatic syndrome. What is the healing process overall? Like, because all right, when it comes to cannabis, I feel that there needs to be a PSA of the healing process, and where is that on the health component in healing?
Okay, so it's different for every individual,
Right?
But what the Army teaches us is we need to talk. That was the one thing that was the biggest thing that I got out of when you redeploy back from downrange, when you come back to the U.S. They don't let you go on vacation or anything until you first meet with therapists and stuff like that the Army provides, and then you have to be educated on what post-traumatic stress is. Now, the new thing is taking the word disorder out of PTSD and just go straight with PTS, post-traumatic stress. And the reason why they want to take the disorder out of it, and it makes good sense too, is that when your body, reacts to trauma, you know what I'm saying, particularly on a continuous basis, okay, what happens to your body is not a disorder. That's what happens when your body is continuously exposed to trauma. You're going to do that. So if your body was continuously exposed to trauma and you ain't had nothing, then that's the disorder. You see what I'm saying? That's where the disorder is.
Yeah,
but
no reaction.
If you had no reaction and you was just, all right, now something wrong, okay? But then when you look at post-traumatic stress, it explains, particularly those of us in the African American community, if you read up on it, it explains us, it explains our family members, and it explains a lot of our friends. Hypersensitivity to constructive criticism, you know what I'm saying? Engaged in dangerous activities, constantly like wanting to fight, all of that. Who that sound like? I know that sound like a few of my sisters. That sound like me. That sound like my mom. some of my aunts and them. You know, I see some of my cousins. You know, oh, that's probably why we had some of them fights. Yeah, you know, all that. You know, now mind you, when you talk about the African American community, you're talking about generations upon generations of untreated post-traumatic stress. You know, we're talking from slavery, when master would come and take my mom and then go rape her in front of me and in front of my father and all them. Where's the therapy for me? Where's the therapy for my mom? Where's the therapy for my father? All that. You know, and then you're talking that happening over generation upon generation upon generation. And then we're going to follow it up with, you know, the Ku Klux Klan and civil rights and all that other stuff. So we're going to burn some crosses, lynch some black people, and and string them up and all that stuff.
Right.
All right. Then we're going to go from that to, now the next thing is we're going to flood the hood with drugs. You see what I'm saying? All of this is going on. Where's the therapy? And then you wonder why you got kids growing up now, especially men, that are confused. You know what I'm saying? Because on top of the deindustrialization of the African American community. So they took out the trades, they took out all that stuff, and then they made us think that in order for us to make it, we either have to be able to bounce a ball real quick, run real fast or catch it, or have to go to college. But then when you look at Black Wall Street, when you look at what happened there, a dollar bill exchanged hands within that community 16 times before it left? So you have what we call an independent economic ecosystem. And what happened with that independent economic ecosystem? White people burned it.
So, since we're dealing with systemic racism, oppression, where do we go after we feel all of that when it comes to the futurists, the technology, and how do we build the foundation overall to get not just oppressed people out of the gutter onto the platform where they can springboard, also internationally? How do those two things can coincide?
At this point, from a business perspective and business activist perspective, and talking about being time appropriate, I feel like the talk time is over. I can show you better than I can tell you. And when I do business, how I do business, you know, whatever my blueprint is, that's what it is. Because right now, if you are somebody who still needs convincing that you need to be in this industry, I'm not the guy to talk to. That was a couple of train stops ago. You know, because I don't have it in me to have those kinds of conversations over and over and over again. Not at this time in time. I'm dealing with stuff that people ain't, you know, like it's go time for me. And so the best thing I could tell you is find and highlight all of those who look like you that's doing it in a way that you would like to have seen it, you would hope to have seen it done. Because there are people who look like us that are actually in this industry doing it and doing it really well, but we don't know who they are.
All right, so give me some of the companies and allies, like, you know,
Shonda Macias, Women Grow; Gia Marone, Women Grow; Dashita Dawson, MJ Weehead; Leo Bridgewater, Leaf Launch; Jake Plowden, Cannabis Cultural Association; Wanda James, Simply Pure; Al Harrington, Viola; Eugene Monroe, GTI; Shayun, what is Shayun's last name? My man Shayun.
We got you.
Yeah. Ronnie Soto, you know, I Deserve Canna. Geez, oh man.
By the way, it's a whole
Roz
group
McCarthy, Roz McCarthy, Minorities for Medical Marijuana, you know, Eric Range, M for MM, you know, those are people that, you know,
the rock stars.
Those are your serious rock stars, yeah. And I know I missed a few of them too, but yeah. Oh, Hope Wiseman, you know, Marion Maine, You know, she at one point she was the youngest African American dispensary owner in the country.
And that needs to be known.
Yeah, and she'll be here Saturday in Philly.
All right, so all right.
This is good. Thank you so much. Just took a few years to get together, but it's a perfect timing.
It was supposed to happen.
And I'm so grateful that I saved this interview with you for the right publication with IMU.
Yeah,
Okay.
man, shout us out, man. You know,
Yeah, shout out to IMU. You know, thank you for having me. You know, and I look forward to doing more work with you guys.
Yeah.